it's Debbie, and I am here with another episode of The True Crimes of Criminal Minds. I have a very big announcement. It has finally been confirmed that the Criminal Minds reboot is actually happening. I have confirmed returns of Aisha Tyler as Dr. Lewis, AJ Cook as Jennifer Giroux, Emily Prentice, played by Paget Brewster, Rossi, played by Joe Mantegna, and Garcia, played by Kirsten Vagness, and Adam Rodriguez as Luke Alves. I'm so excited and I cannot wait. The very last episode, Garcia took another job. So I'm kind of excited to see how they work her back in. She also got asked out by Luke. So I am shipping them so hard and I can't wait. This is going to be fantastic. 10 episodes, one story arc over the whole 10 episodes. Probably similar to what they did in the last season on CBS. It was 10 episodes. And while there were other cases, there was always a continuing thread running through them of unsub, and his name was Everett Lynch, the chameleon. So I am so very, very, very excited about that. Before we get into episode 2 of Criminal Minds, 2 warnings, spoiler warning. I'm really gonna try, but I make no promises. And trigger warning. Delicate, disturbing cases, and I don't want to freak anybody out. So, you have been warned. Okay, so I promised I was going to tell you about how Gideon caught the footpath killer. So, at the end of the previous episode, he's at a gas station. He sees the clerk with all of the traits of the profile that they made for the footpath killer. He realizes that he's in trouble and he needs backup. So he gets this weird look over his face. He's got his gun on his hip, which was seen by the clerk of the gas station. So he just turns around and walks out, and the clerk comes out with a shotgun. Makes him go back in the store, slams him up against the wall, and says, "Who are you?" Excuse me, stutters, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm FBI." And he said, "Give me your wallet." Then all that disappears and you see him in his office talking to cadets about the footpath killer. And he says, "Well, this is a good time to stop." So then Al comes in and says, "Why did the footpath killer stutter?" And he says, "You want to be a profiler with this group, you figure it out." So then she says to Morgan, "Why did the footpath killer stutter?" And Morgan says, "He's not going to tell us. He wants us to figure it out on our own." So then the meat of the episode plays, and then it's like a wraparound story. We go back at the end of the episode to the footpath killer. So Elle says to Gideon, "You don't know why the footpath killer stuttered. I looked it up. Nobody knows what causes a stutter." So Gideon says, "I don't know why he stuttered, but I know how to provoke a stutter." So the footpath killer leads him to his little room behind the convenience store, gas station, and all the pictures on the fridge are pictures of the girls that the footpath killer killed. And there are 13 pictures. And Gideon looks at him and said, "Oh, we only found 6. Then the footpath killer asks him a question. I think he asked him, "Are you impressed?" And then Gideon says, "Yes, we didn't think you could count." And then he gets flustered and he stutters more and more. He still has a shotgun on Gideon. I don't think I would be brave enough to taunt someone pointing a shotgun at me. But anyway, so then he says, We thought you were too stupid to count. And he gets more flustered. And the more he gets flustered, the more he stutters. And then Gideon starts teasing him about the stutter. What? I didn't catch that. What'd you say? I have no idea what you're trying to say. And it frustrates him so bad that Gideon is able to get the gun away from him and knock him out and get help to capture the footpath killer. So in the second episode of Criminal Minds, it's called Compulsion, and the team gets called to a college in Tempe, Arizona, where fires are being set. Now, this episode also deals with OCD. And I'm not talking OCD like how my husband puts the groceries away. I'm talking about severe OCD, where you believe if you don't do something, something terrible will happen. And it's a delusion. And that is why the unsub is setting fires in this episode. The arsonist mentioned in this episode, his name is Peter Dinsdale. And I looked it up, and apparently Peter Dinsdale is a pro football player. So I had to do some digging, but I finally found it. And he was born Peter George Dinsdale on July 31st, 1960. His mother was a prostitute, and he was born with congenital spastic hemiplegia. It's a form of muscular dystrophy, and what it means that the muscles on one side of his body were in a state of constant contraction. So he limped, and he held his arm over his chest like this to keep it from spasming and doing its own thing and going crazy. He also had epilepsy and a little bit of mental retardation, and he got the nickname where he lived of Daft Peter. Because of his illness, his mom gave him to his grandma, and his grandmother raised him for 3 years, and then he was sent to a children's home that specialized in handicapped children. And he bounced around between those kind of homes until the age of 16. His mother remarried in 1979, so he took the last name Lee. And because he was a huge Bruce Lee fan, he changed his first name to Bruce. So his legal name at that time was Bruce Peter George Lee. He totally dropped the Dinsdale. Okay, let's talk about his crimes. The most well-known crime of his was the Selby Street fire. The Hasty family lived at 12 Selby Street, and they were kind of considered a nuisance in the neighborhood. She had 7 kids. Her husband had gone to jail for petty theft, and her 3 girls were spending the night at a friend's house. So it was her and the 4 boys. She also had a handicapped child who slept in the bed with her. Her oldest son, Charlie, she woke up, the house was on fire. She got him to help her, and he pushed her out a window, and she injured her ankle, but she lived. He went back to get his brothers, and unfortunately all 3 boys were taken to the hospital and later died. And the 4th boy was found totally unharmed in a back bedroom. So only one of her sons survived the fire. At the funeral, she actually yelled at people because nobody was sympathetic. They thought they got what they deserved. Because the boys would go around and they would pee through mail slots. They would defecate on doorsteps. They would throw stones at elderly people. They would still close offline. They were just nuisances. And she was infuriated for all the flack she was getting about how they should be dead. And so she just kind of lost it at the funeral and yelled at everybody, "I've lost my sons, I need some sympathy." So, I don't know if she actually said that, but the way he set the fire, he poured paraffin through the mail slot. They found matches there because he tried to light it with matches and it didn't light. And they found some newspaper that he lit the newspaper, stuck it through the mail slot, and it started the fire. And that is the fire that Bruce George Peter Lee is most famous for. However, there were other fires. At the age of 9, there was a fire at a shopping complex where 17,000 pounds of damage was done. There was also, at the age of 16, Wensley Lodge was burned down, which was a home for the elderly. And they thought it had been done by a plumber that was working on the pipes with a blowtorch. Every fire that he set up until the Selby Street fire, they thought was just accidental causes. Now, they think they know the motive for this fire. Peter Dinsdale did say, "I love fire. Fire is my master." And he also said he knew when it was time to do another fire because his fingers would tingle. But they think he actually had a motive for this one, and that is he was having sex with Charlie, the oldest son, and Charlie was blackmailing him. And so they think he set the fire to kill Charlie. Also, he had a crush on Charlie's sister, Angie, and she rebuffed his advances. So I guess he didn't know that she wasn't there. The point of the fire was to kill Charlie and his sister. 1 year earlier, a fire was set in Roz Fenton's house through the mail slot, just like the Selby fire. And this time the people lived. Unfortunately, the woman was pregnant and did lose the baby. And she had seen him on her doorstep and also saw a hand come through her mail slot. And she recognized him and she said, "Oh, that's just Daft Peter," and didn't think anything else about it. There were other fires. There were 9 fires over a 7-year period. There were also 10 fires that were non-fatal, and he was not charged with them. On January 20th, 1981, he was charged with 26 counts of murder. He said he never meant to kill anyone, and he pled not guilty to murder, but did plead guilty to manslaughter. Because of his diminished capacity, he was sentenced to live in a secure hospital for the rest of his life. He's now 62 years old in Rampton Secure Hospital in England, and he gets day passes, which would really creep me out if I lived there. So that's the story of Peter Dinsdale. Join me again next week for another episode of True Crimes of Criminal Minds. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you can see when my new video comes out. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys. See you next time.